All right, gentlemen, good to see you, Boz, as always. And Ryan, welcome,
Pleasure.
man.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So, Ryan and I got to chat a little bit ago, just specifically talking about gym owners that are using the BTWB all in one. And I do about one of those interviews a week. And so I get to talk to a lot of gym owners. But your story, Ryan, your business model was so uniquely different that at the end of our conversation, it's like, man, we got to have you on Very Not Random just to chat all about this. So this is going to be a show, hopefully, that really is intriguing to gym owners out there. That's going to be my preface. But before we get into that, Boz, just before we clicked on the camera, you said you got a feel good story.
Yeah, my fitness is not at an all-time high, Pat, but every once in a while you get kind of a sparkle of like, okay, I'm still doing okay, not doing too bad. So I was at the old lunchtime jiu-jitsu the other day, and it was a small class. It was just me and another guy. We're about at the same level, same body size. Young man, 27 years old, and he's got
Prime of his life.
Yep, got a wrestler's background, and he's had some amateur MMA fights and things like that. He's also a country singer, so he's traveling around quite a bit.
Oh,
And
wow,
he just
okay.
got back off the road, back in class. And, we had some rounds. It was pretty competitive. It was back and forth. He had the upper hand sometimes. I did okay other times. But it was just rounds with us back and forth because we were the only ones there that day. And we're getting towards the last minutes of our final round, and he starts tapping, which was strange because I was nowhere near a submission. I was like, that's kind of weird. And he's like, dude, tap, tap. I'm like, okay. He had to get up and bolt for the back door, and little dry heave out there.
Oh, no
I was
kidding.
like, all right, makes the middle-aged guy feel pretty good about himself.
Just straight conditioning.
Or you could keep the pace on him, yeah.
Yeah.
In fairness, he is like, it's the touring. I'm like, okay, you can tell yourself that. But
Hey, he's living that hard life on the road. That's cool. Well, let's
yeah.
before we get
So
into it.
little humble brag there, Pat.
Oh, dude, 100%. I mean, that's why we do what we do. I say before we get into it with Ryan, let's pay the bills real quick. Appreciate everybody watching, listening. If you are a gym owner like Ryan, you've got to do gym management, workout tracking, billing, all that good stuff that has to happen behind the scenes. BTWB now has an all-in-one, so you don't need multiple platforms and software. So if you are a gym owner, go to btwb.com, check that out. And then, of course, all the different cycles that we offer for the show. Gymnastic stuff, barbell stuff, get your first, fill in the blanks, strict pull-up, handstand walk, conditioning programs. So if you want to check out any of those very not random cycles that upload right to the app, go to verynotrandom.com and check all those out. Okay, so Ryan, you are the owner of Level 5 and you are in Oregon.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And when we chatted the other day, whenever I do an interview with gym owners, they send me some just background on what they got going on, helps guide the conversation, all that stuff. And you had a couple very interesting things in your bio, but I'll throw this one out there just to whet the appetite of everybody. You said currently in 12,000 square feet of working out facility with 1,200 members, and we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was like, that right there is not what I hear regularly. So I know that you didn't start there. And you've been in the CrossFit game now since about '08, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely not your typical CrossFit gym. And in '08 is when I found CrossFit. And I was at the '08 CrossFit games with you guys getting my butt kicked. I got my level 1 at CrossFit One World.
Oh, love it.
You guys might have been there.
Yeah.
I got my level 2 in Austin. I'm pretty sure Boz was there. And so I opened up, my first CrossFit gym in Bend, Oregon CrossFit, still around. It's the gym that Tommy Hackenbrook came out of. Then I opened up Central Oregon CrossFit in Redmond next door, and that's the gym that Cody Anderson came out of. And then I took
Nice.
a 2-year tour out to Jackson Hole and started the first, gym in that area. And mainly, I just wanted to go snowboarding there in Jackson Hole for a couple years, and started a gym while I was at it. And then I came back to Sisters and said, okay, I'm going to finally settle down, lay some roots, have some kids, not bounce around from gym to gym. I'm gonna lock in on a community. And my whole mantra was no landlords, no employees, just me and my garage. We had to live work. So my wife and kids were
Mm.
upstairs. We were downstairs. We had one vehicle. And that was the dream and the plan. But But God had other plans for us. 13 years later, it looks totally different. And I thought it was a curse on the way things changed, but it ended up being a blessing. And it ended up putting me in a better plan than I ever had for myself.
Well, man, let's start with the curse side of that, because I think from the outside looking in, you look at, hey, you got 1,200 members, and Bend is it's a city, but it's not like a New York metropolis. So I think anybody seeing those numbers is like, well, wait a minute, how is that possibly a curse? So what do you mean by that, where you go from this situation that you think you got it all figured out? It's self-contained, it's small, you're the boss. Flash forward 1,200. What's the curse in there?
Yeah. So, like literally the city sign says population 3,000 and we have 1,200 members. So you do the math and you're like, dude, like half the town, like how's that even possible? With all that said, there's probably like 15,000 people within 5 miles of here. But we still have like 10%. Like it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, how'd that happen? Well, I started off and I'm like, dude, I just want to make 6 digits and I want 100 clients, and that's all I'll ever want. And that's all we had for a number of years. And then, we decided to do Murph through the neighborhood one Memorial Day. And all it took was one neighbor that got pissed off about getting woken up, at 7 a.m. on Memorial Day by somebody running by their house. Should have been cheering for us, but instead he called the city and said, hey, these guys are exceeding, their residential code, which technically we were. We basically outgrew, this small home-based business and we're waking up the neighbors, right? And literally this call required the city, who was cool with us for 5 years. They said, hey, all right, we have to act on this. You guys got to move to a commercial zone.
Mm.
So, man, I thought that was the biggest curse ever. My dream was shattered. And, and I thought, okay, this is the end of it. And there was only one space in town that we could move to. And so we moved into that strip mall next to the supermarket, 2,000 square feet. And all of a sudden I got rent, I got a landlord, and I'm like, man, it's not what I wanted. And so that was the curse on where it started. And I thought this was just bad news. And then the good news started.
Hey,
What happened?
before we get to the good news, because I
Yeah.
think this story is going to progress.
Yeah.
You're unique also in the fact that you founded 3 gyms before you even did this. So if you founded it, you started it, but when you're done with it, so does that mean you've sold 3 gyms? And if so, like I don't get to talk to many people who have done that. And how did you do that? Do you put it on Craigslist? Is there somebody looking to a member? Like how does one go about offloading a CrossFit gym when they're done with it?
Another very good question, man. It's a very difficult thing to sell a CrossFit gym. You're never going to get what you put into it.
Sure.
You're going to lose money, straight up. So my advice to people, and like some of those first gyms, man, I just opened on a credit card. Like, okay, bad plan. Don't do that. Only put in what you're willing to lose and walk away from. And but I didn't do that in the first, and so just trying to break even and get out, and that's kind of how it was. But at one point, because basically 2 different situations, Jackson Hole and in Central Oregon here, we couldn't find space. The only space we could find was in a Globo gym. So we ended up renting space in the Globo gym. And eventually the gym owner said, you know what, you guys should just buy the whole gym. And so I did. And so just by happenstance, at one point, I owned 2 health clubs and 2 CrossFit gyms in 2 states.
Wow.
And I had 3,000 members and 50 employees, and I was like miserable. I was in hell, honestly, even though we were grossing tons, we were breaking even at the end of the year and working way too much. And so I said, the heck with this. And so I literally put all my businesses on a brokerage site, a business brokerage site. And I put it up as a Hail Mary thinking there's no way. It's kind of a God thing, man, to where in the same month, all 4 of the gyms sold and I got a fresh start to start over fresh. And we could go anywhere we wanted. We had non-competes in Redmond, Oregon and in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we settled on Sisters, Oregon and came and started from scratch. And the last thing we wanted to do was get into that cycle again.
Yep. Okay, so let me talk this back and make sure I'm understanding the situation. Get into CrossFit 2008. Start getting your hands into the gym business. Super successful over years to build up to where you were with these multiple locations in multiple states, tons of employees working like crazy, too much, sell them. Okay, now we got this fresh start. I want to make sure that we don't end up back there. And now your hand's forced by the city because, hey, you're starting to overgrow your situation. So in your mind, you're thinking, man, we're back on this slippery slope towards having to be in a managerial position, having to be, just finding yourself in that rut again. You think that's going to be the first step. So what changed? How did you avoid ending back in that same situation? Despite the fact that, like, clearly you got a ton of people coming through the door and it sounds like you're very successful. So what did you do differently this time?
Yeah. So, I went through like 7 gyms in 7 years, and I'm like, okay. And I was trying to put people in place too quickly, right? I was trying to hire a team and staff it out, and it was too premature. And, and so I said, you know what? I want to establish the culture of this gym, and I want to be the guy. I want to coach everybody. I want to know everybody. I want to be, when I lock the door, I don't want anybody else coming in. So it's kind of like a control freak thing, but also like, you know what? I want to establish the culture here, and I want to get to a certain point before I start slowly handing this off to the right people at the right time. And so I kind of committed to, a 5-year minimum of like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to coach 4 nights a week and 6 mornings a week. And I'm going to do the cleaning, and I'm going to do everything for 5 years. And then I'm going to start slowly releasing and letting some of my members that have been with me for 5+ years that just love the gym and want to give back, to allow them to start helping as independent contractors. So I finally found a coach, that I said, okay, I'm going to give you one class a week, and we're going to start from there. She's been with me now for 7 years. I'm going to have one cleaning girl. That's one of my regulars. She's there anyway. She's going to stay an hour or two after and clean the gym for me. Slowly started to release. And so now I have a team of like a dozen members that have been with me since the beginning. And I found this demographic that works great. Okay, longtime members. There are people in their 40s and 50s whose kids are grown, right? So you don't have like the new mom that's always got to call in sick. You don't have people that are trying to establish their career. And most of these people are financially independent, so they just do the gym and help out because they love it. And I found this magic mix of people to make my team with, but it took 5 to 10 years to be able to establish the culture and slowly hand that off.
Sounds like one of those overnight successes,
Yeah.
Behind every overnight success, right? It's the 10-year rule.
In hindsight, if there's a gym owner listening to this, with it in the rear view mirror, do you see a more efficient way to get there, or did it has to take the time that it took?
Yeah, no. I looking back, I think it was the wisest way to go. Now I started with the end in mind of thinking this is how I want it to be forever. But I think I was such a serial entrepreneur and such a serial, like, I knew how to start gyms. I just didn't know how to finish and maintain and continue and play the long game. And so I said, you know what? After doing this 7 years, this is it. I'm done. This is where I'm going to finish. I'm not doing anything else. And so just that commitment and making sure I'm going to do it right, and I'm only going to let go when I'm forced to let go. That was the key. And so, yeah, could it be 3 years instead of 5? Sure. But I think too many people in our game, they try to open up a gym, and in that first year, they want to staff it all out and expect it to run. And then in year 2, they're like, man, why are we not making money, and why are people leaving?
Well, I mean, yes, and I don't want to speak for a bunch of gym owners, but I've over the course of the last 20 years had a fair number of conversations with plenty of them. I think there's a lot of gym owners out there who just barely have their nostrils above water. Like,
Yeah.
we're not talking about the long game, the short game. We're talking income and expenses and trying to like pay the mortgage and feed their kids and all that, let alone to find somebody doing it repeatedly in a highly profitable manner is not as common as potentially one might think. It's so and so is a fireman and they have a gym. So and so is this going on and I coach a little bit. So, there's very few that are like, yep, I've got a gym and there's 2 nice cars in the driveway. Check out my house. I'm happy with this. The kids are in school. So and so needs braces. Not a problem. Like that's so. What you've been at this for a bit. What do you think separates those barely nostrils above water to, hey, I'm actually running a profitable business. the clients are getting what they need out of it. It's the best hour of their day. They're super happy. They're getting fit, but also like, I'm not running a charity here. My bank wants me to pay them with money, not goodwill. So I've got to make money at my business. What's the separator there?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, like think with the end in mind, and that's kind of the model that we have now that I think gym owners should be striving for and thinking about as a long term plan. But you also need to commit to that early grind, and you need to allow the business to make what you need to make with just you, right, on your own. Because if it's not profitable and making what you need it to make on your own, it's definitely not going to when you hire staff out. Some people
Mm-hmm.
think, oh, more staff means more members, more profit. And no, if anything, it's the opposite, at least temporarily or initially. So, I got it. It took me a year or two, but I got to where I was making six digits, as a business owner, and felt very comfortable right off the bat. And then when people started to ask me, hey, when could I maybe help? Or people ask, hey, are you hiring? And I'm like, well, first thing you got to do is be a client here for 3 years. And that would eliminate 90% of them. They're like, oh, okay, never mind.
Right.
And then I would go to those long-term members that have been with me for a while. And actually they would come to me usually and say, hey, do you need some help around here? It seems like you could use a hand. Like, okay, yeah. And so start slowly doing that at the right time. But think with the end in mind of creating passive income. Okay. And the way you create passive income is having an open gym option. You got to have this in your gym. Otherwise, you're just trading money for time. Whether
Okay, gotcha.
whether somebody else is working those hours, you got to pay them, right? So I pay my coach, $25 to do a class, and the people that are there, maybe they pay $100, right? So now I'm making
Hmm.
75, right? Now, if I'm doing it all, then I'm making all that without that overhead. You think about all those things. Either way, you're trading time for money.
So
When you
now,
go ahead.
I was going to say, so now maybe, since you're getting into how you do business now, maybe we pause here and we go back to Boz's question, which was, you talked about the curse, you get out of that, just garage gym, you found a space there, also had a global gym, you started, now you're out on your own, out of the neighborhood in an actual commercial location. And now I'm going to assume that that was the evolution of the business to what is you're chatting about right now. So now maybe we rewind and pick up the story to, you kick out of the gym, you enter this other gym. What do you got?
Yeah. So a year after we moved into the commercial space, okay, 2,000 square feet. So we're in one of the 10 bays, right, on a strip mall. I walked down by the end cap, and it's 3 bays. It's 6,000 square feet. It's a furniture store, and it's empty. And I'm like, wait, where did they go? And I looked at the space. It's a wide open 6,000 square foot space. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be the ultimate gym space. I walked into it and I'm like, nope, this is too big. This is exactly what I didn't want to get into. I can only imagine
Yep.
what the rent's going to be. And I just got this vision because I know 6,000 square feet, man. Like, you can't hold a class at 6,000 square feet, man. Be like herding cats, right? Everybody scattered to the corners. And I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. But this idea of doing, okay, 3,000 for our class space, 3,000 for open gym space, not dividing it, keeping it open, having this open gym space available even during classes 24/7, right? Allowing the class side to continue to operate and having more space than we had before.
Mm.
Also giving them open gym access. So it's not just classes only. You could come in on your own and do your own training. That idea, got put in my head, and just putting a key card system on the door, putting some cameras up, and realizing if I can build this open gym side, I don't have to just trade time for money. I have some passive income that could be created. And now I'm talking to the other 90% of the fitness target market, instead of just the 10% of the CrossFitters. So
Hmm.
now I'm literally have, times 10 target market potential of who I can appeal to.
When you say you're targeting everybody else, does that mean that you get 6,000 square feet? Half I can obviously picture for CrossFit classes. The other half, which is open gym, is it open gym? And when I picture that 3,000 square feet, it looks like a CrossFit gym with ropes, rigs, and platforms, or does it have traditional like Gold's Gym style gear?
It has traditional gym stuff, but it has at least one of everything to be able to do any WOD. So
Gotcha.
there is a rope, there's a pair of high rings, there's a pair of low rings, there's 2 platforms, Olympic platforms, there's 3 squat racks, there's 2 bench presses, there's an overhead pull-up bar, but there's also a cardio row.
Mm-hmm.
There's some machines like reverse hyper, leg press, etc. And then in the lobby, if you will, there's a full cage
Oh, you're frozen. Let's see.
and dumbbell mirrors set up, like just appeal to everybody, right? And so we just made it friendly for the average Joe, but we also made it friendly to the elite CrossFitter weightlifter that wanted to come in and get a workout in for $15 on their own
Yeah, that's
and be
cool.
able to have the,
Sorry, Ryan, you cut out for just a second there. We lost you right when you said in the lobby. Can you just repeat that one more time?
yeah, in the lobby is where we have our cable set up, right? So
Okay.
universal cable set up so people can do their lat pull downs and their seated rows and their, whatever, along with a full dumbbell set and a wall of mirrors. So, it basically has everything, cables, bands, and cardio machines and dumbbells, kettlebells. So it's a full service gym on that
Yeah.
side. And it's catered to work, for anybody that walks in the door.
Yep.
But
I got a question.
Oh, me
yes,
too. You go first,
Uh,
Pat.
um,
So many questions.
fire away.
at this stage in your business, how long had you been, did you say, in the 2,000 square foot when you saw this? A year, year and a half, 2 years?
This was about the five. Well, it was 1 year after moving to commercial.
Okay.
So 1 year after moving in, we saw this opportunity to move and expand.
Okay. So you decide to pull the trigger on this, obviously. And now you've obviously got some gear in the other space that you're going to bring over to the other gear. And you talking about income, expenses, not getting into water. Now feel free to tell me to shut up if I'm overstepping my bounds. I'm so fascinated. How much do you remember ballpark how much it cost? Like, what does it cost to outfit a 3,000 square foot place with all that cardio row and the gear and all that? And then to try to be a smart business person, I mean, did you have the money to float that? Did you finance it? Like, what does that look like for a small business owner?
Yeah. So, in the original gym, I made sure everything was cash, and it was like, hey, when I get to 5 members, I'm going to buy, another rower, pull up bar, weight set. When I get to 10, I'm going to buy another. And so everything cash going up until we had 12 stations and 100 people.
No debt.
Move, no debt, zero debt. Move that over, right? And then when we go to the 6,000 square feet, okay, we're talking about like 30, 40 grand to outfit that with the cameras, the key card, the extra mats, the extra equipment. And I remember like assault, like that's when we got assault bikes going in and they had like
Mm-hmm.
zero financing stuff. So I did a little bit of financing, just 0%, made sure no interest on some stuff like that that helped me pull the trigger. I made sure that everything else was cash. So like I don't know, I probably had 20 grand just sitting there and I put that
Okay.
in and then maybe used a little bit of financing help too. But I made sure that the rent, and I might have had like 3 months free rent or something like that to help. And I remember like locking in my rent for 15 years because I'm like, I want to
Hmm.
know what I'm paying here. I don't want to get surprised. I want to make sure it fits within. So we had 3 5-year renewals.
Hmm.
We're still in the middle of that. And so I made sure that it worked in our current cash flow. Even if we didn't add those open gym members that I was banking on, we could still
Gotcha.
float it,
Nice.
right?
Yeah, so you're not working with the speculation on it will generate this much. It's the reality of this is what we have to expand with.
Yeah, basically I just put my savings into it, and then I knew that few $1,000s a month extra monthly I could absorb if I had to. But shoot, man, if we can get even 100 open gym members, then we break even, and then the rest is all profit. And we've gone from 100 open gym members to over 1,000 over the last five
Wow.
years.
Yeah,
And so,
go ahead. Sorry.
well, it was a slow build, right? So in the
Yep.
very beginning, it was like, man, we were 90% just CrossFit gym, the same people, and 10% open gymmers. And it was like these are the new guys coming in, okay? But over 5 years, and this just takes time, it's flipped, and so now our CrossFit members are the 10%, and the open gym members are the 90%. It just takes time to do it, and for people to realize, like, oh, this is like a regular gym too? Yes. And so that took us from, $100,000 a year business to $1 million a year business, but it took over 5 years to get to that point.
Hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my question, was just kind of the breakdown of who's doing what. So that's interesting to see that you kind of had that flip-flop. Excuse me. Although it does make sense, right? Like, I think anybody who's been in the CrossFit world long enough, it's like you do recognize that there's kind of a limit set on classes and how many classes you can do per day, how many people you can fit in those classes. Like, there is an upper limit to how much you can do with that model. I want to move away from the raw numbers a little bit. And in the beginning, you talked about culture, and it was really important to you to set the tone, to get the right people doing the right things. One of the things that I think is a criticism of the open gym model that you hear a lot is like, how do I maintain the culture within my facility? How do I make sure that there's not this kind of divide between the people that come in and do this open gym and the class people? How do I ease any sort of friction that can be built there? Some people avoid it entirely for that reason, or when problems develop, they don't know how to navigate that. So how have you managed that, especially with the kind of rising tide of open gymmers versus CrossFitters? How do you preserve that culture, and what do you do if you do start sensing some friction among your members?
Yeah, very, very good question. And honestly, that was a concern in the beginning. And there's a little bit of assimilation, that happens with that. It is a great feeder system. People get to watch the classes while they're doing their bench and curls or their bis and tris. And then they're like, oh, curious. Yeah, maybe I want to give that a try.
Yeah, that looks
Right.
fun.
They
Yeah.
rub elbows on the way in and the way out,
Yep.
and you see all of a sudden these people are like becoming friends. And you're like, wow, look at this community crossover that we're having here, like a melting pot. But it was, 6,000 square feet is enough where people can kind of separate and like, yeah, what that guy's doing in the corner isn't disturbing me. And what the class is doing over here, man, even though we got the music cranked up, isn't disturbing them. But I realized that's still limiting a little bit. So when we needed to expand, when we got to like 400 members, we're like, man, we need some more space. We acquired the space next door, and it was a Globo gym space. We put machines in there. We made it super Globo gym friendly. Played some light classic rock. Made it unintimidating, non CrossFit ish, and then that is our big money maker. That is when the floodgates opened and the people just started coming in droves. And
Oh,
the fact,
interesting.
yeah, that was the key that got us from 400 to 1,000, was saying, you know what? As a businessman, I'm going to be wise here, and I'm going to appeal to the masses. And so I'm just going to set up a gym that's a typical SIA machines, another 2 to 4,000 square feet next to our 6,000 square feet, two separate accesses, two separate vibes. People have card works for both. They can go back and forth. They can do their accessory work, either bodybuilding, in addition to their CrossFit, or they can just, do their own thing. It's like one-stop shopping, everything under one roof. But and by doing that, some people, have checked out the CrossFit gym and said, you know what, I'm going to work out here. I'm going to work up to going over to level 5, but I'm going to start at Cascade Fitness because that's like, the average Joe place. And so I would just encourage all CrossFit gym owners. We probably have 250 people doing CrossFit classes now, way more than we ever have before, because of this feeder system that we have. We're attracting all the masses. We're attracting the 100%, not the 10%. I would encourage all of the gym owners, if you got even a small area that you can just dedicate towards that and do open gym on it, you'll be amazed at how many people just come and are attracted to that. But it's a great place. It's a great entry point, starting point. And that was what blew up our business.
Hmm.
Hmm.
We went from 150 to 400 by adding open gym. As soon as we added more of your Globo gym as an option next door, and it didn't take away from our community or our culture because it wasn't in it. It was separate. Some people say, dude, why don't you just blow out a wall and make it one big gym? Because that 90% won't come anymore. If we blow out the wall and start making it a CrossFit gym with machines, the masses won't come. They need their safe place to go. And we can encourage them to cross over, but they need a safe place of their own. So put up a wall, have that as an addition to your gym, and it won't just be an addition. It'll blow it up to the next level.
Well, let's be real and talk honest for a second. everybody enjoys a little bench press and some dumbbell kickbacks. I mean, come on, you know what I mean? It's just good. It's just good stuff right there. I mean, come on, it's a slice of Americana. You know what I like about the way, on the CrossFit side of the house, that you do the open gym, compared to what I've seen in some other gyms. Which I like to go in if I'm traveling. I like to go into an open gym. I like to go to do my thing, get out of there. Is usually they don't have the two separate spaces. So like they have classes during the day, and then when there's not classes, they might have it as open gym. But obviously, the classes are during the peak times that you probably want to go. And the open gym is when the gym's really not that busy, which is the times that most people don't want to go. But since you have 3,000 for classes and 3,000, you can come in open gym any hour of the day. Even if a CrossFit gym is like, well, I'm not going to do the Globo gym, like that way of doing the open gym, that now it's the peak time is when I want to go, and now I can. I think that's a really cool way to do open gym.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, man, people love the 24-hour flexibility. Even though a lot of people don't come in the middle of the night, man, they love to know that they could if they wanted to, and not have any excuses or scheduling. You give them a code to the door for drop-in visits, or you give them a card. Come whenever you want, no excuses, right? Get it in wherever you can. And all we do is we have a wall of squat racks that kind of separates, the open gym side from the class side. And then a wall of flags above it. And we're just like, yeah, man, everything on this side of the flags is all yours. Go for it. Everybody knows during class, don't cross over the flags into that side and disturb the class. And I had concerns about it, that maybe we needed to put up a wall, maybe, that would be disruption. Man, it's been perfect. The perfect setup to do that. So as long as you got enough space to split the gym in half and just say, hey, and it's like what do we call it? Like a waiting room, almost in the open gym area before and after, because our classes are back to back. So the next class will hang out in the
Right.
open gym area. They'll be
Gotcha.
rolling out and stretching and socializing,
Might
watching the
hop on
class.
a bike or something.
Yeah, and they get to watch the class, right? Do it. And I know, probably other gyms kind of have that, but to have that in the open gym area as well. And then after class, right, they come back to the waiting room and they hang out there too. And they're mingling it with the open gymmers, man. And it works beautifully. And yeah, we tell them, hey, if you come in midday, mid-afternoon, you'll have the whole gym to yourself. But if you want to come prime time, man, you'll have a spot. You'll have the ability to get your workout in, no matter what it is.
I like that a lot. And you said that doing that, the 3,000 CrossFit 3,000 open gym, which was a mixture of rings, ropes, platforms, and commercial style machines, that took you to ballpark from like 150 to 400, you said, for members ish.
Yep, in about a year.
And do you
Wow.
think that additional 250 of the open gymmers that showed up, do you have any sense as to whether they were, for lack of a better way to say it, CrossFitters that didn't want the class, or were they more of people that were dabbling a bit of both, but the machines got a ton of the use?
A combination of the two, which is great. But here's the thing, right? What happens, in our typical CrossFit gym when somebody gets injured, right, or they get burnt out?
Just tell them to suck it up.
Yeah, or their schedule gets jacked up, and they're like, "Yeah, it's just not going to work."
Right.
They cancel, right? We
Mm.
lose them, right? And 90% of them, I'm like, hey, just shift to open gym. It's $59 a month. You can come whenever you want. You can do your rehab. You can do accessory work. You can do the Beyond the Whiteboard app and follow the workouts. Just do them on your own and scale as you see fit, and not have the pressure of being in the class. And man, so 90% of those people that typically would cancel doing classes just shift to open gym. Now, I will say there is the retention for open gymmers isn't as great as they are in the classes. So you still got to be in touch with them to try to get them back over, but man, you're not losing them. They're sticking with the gym, and a lot of them, man, that's their long game. Is they're like, man, I've been doing this a long time. The classes were great to get me started. Now I just like to kind of do my own thing, which, man, we get to appeal and service those do-it-yourselfers.
It keeps them in your ecosystem.
Yes.
Yeah, that is interesting. I remember having conversations years ago with Matt Swift in Australia, who's a really smart guy. He's one of the first affiliates in Australia. He's been in and out of that world for a long time. And this was, 2011 or 12, we were having conversations around, okay, what do you do with that like intermediate advanced level CrossFitter? Meaning maybe they're not like the Rich Fronings of the world ability-wise, but they've been doing this stuff long enough, 5, 6, 7 years. They know the technique. They're relatively self-starters at that point. They know what they're doing. They're not going to hurt themselves. They've got a good head on their shoulders, but maybe the class environment just isn't for them anymore. How do you service that member without creating like a rift from your other members, et cetera? And it was always kind of interesting to see that end of it, because I do think that most coaches, it's not easy, but I think it's maybe easier to take somebody who's really new and give them the crash course and bring them up to speed. You see progress, they learn new things always. That trajectory makes sense. I think it's much harder to take somebody who's in that kind of intermediate advanced and keep them interested, et cetera, while providing them an option. So that is kind of a cool solve for that. And I didn't even think about that. Hey, what if somebody has like a change in life status, be it injury or whatever else? How do you keep them in the mix? That is kind of cool. And especially because, like you said, the visibility is so high. I can hang out on the other side of the flags and I can still see Pat, my buddy, and I can give him a hard time because he's dogging the workout or whatever. And we can still hang out after class. And hopefully that keeps me coming back, even if I'm not directly involved in that class. So that it is a lot to think about there. And definitely some angles that I don't think I'd considered when considering that open gym model. It's cool to hear.
Yeah, and we're all guys that have been in this game 15, 20 years, right? And we're not the typical, man. We're outlasting them all, and we're figuring out how to do this, for the long term. But you guys probably know the stats better than I do, but I think the average tenure of a CrossFitter is like 2 to 3 years. It could be longer. I've just heard some stats around there that the average CrossFit gym member, they'll go hard for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right, and then they'll hit that point of burnout. They'll either like not recover enough, they'll train too hard. They want, you know how it is. You got to work twice as hard to get half the gains. After and the novice effect is over, and some just lose interest because it start. Okay, now I got to like do all this extra, work to like get to the next level. And anyway, this is a great way to allow them to continue with the programming that's suitable and customized to them. And yeah, if I can keep them in level 5 so they're part of that community, great. If they need to shift to the Globo Gym community and like that's what they need for a period of time, well, we got that right next door too. They don't have to go to the Globo Gym down the road. They can stay right under our roof. And and so that has allowed my retention to be much higher with my members as we go, because I have an option for everybody, and it's not cookie cutter, it's not customized, it's not niche. Right. I learned long ago through through Andy Petronic and their business seminar, 16%. And I used to be a gym owner, so I got into 16% is the potential market that we can go after, and about 10% of that are going to join a CrossFit gym. So that's 1.6%. So we can appeal to the 1.6%, or we can appeal to the 16%. And I think when you appeal to the 16%, you can grow that 1.6 to 2 or 3%.
Just kind of by exposure. Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, that exposure I think is really cool because, like you said, you get their foot in the door, then they can start to see maybe this is for me, et cetera. But, one of the themes that Pat and I talk about all the time is just kind of stages of a long-term fitness person. Like he and I don't want to speak for Pat, but we talk a lot. Like we're lifers, you know what I mean? Like we're going to be doing something for life. Like this is it. There's no turning back. Now that might not look like training 5 days a week, hardcore in a certain style, but there's always going to be something. And I don't see a lot of people that consider that kind of long-term. There will be ebbs and flows of motivation. There will be ebbs and flows of interest. And yet there's something for them within your system that accounts for that. I think oftentimes there's kind of a narrowness in some CrossFit gyms where it's like, okay, when the interest is high and the motivation is high, we're going to knock it out for you. But once those things wane, then what? that question isn't as well
Mm-hmm.
answered. So that's interesting that you account
It
for it.
it fits a nice need.
Yeah.
A lot of the gym owners that I interview, one of the questions I typically ask is because most gym owners would like to grow their reach and grow their base, is advertising. And usually whatever they've tried hasn't worked that well. And the overwhelming answer I get is that it's just word of mouth and providing a good service. People tell their friends and they come in. And I'm curious, is that what your answer would also be? I mean, did you just open the door and that 150 turned into 400, even though they were slightly different clientele? Were they telling people? Did you get the word out some other way? And then when you got from that 400 to 1200, was that still word of mouth? What have you found worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, obviously we went to the commercial facility. We had great visibility. We had great signage. We had great location. We're no longer in my garage, my basement.
Right. Right.
So like trying to do that in a garage gym in an industrial area, it's going to be challenging. And so to make this leap, you might need to find a location that has the visibility and the professionalism that people expect from an elite fitness center, if you will. And so it might require kind of that shift to kind of think bigger. And so for us, just having that location that was a curse that we got forced into, it ended up being, man, as soon as we put up the 24-hour gym sign and put up a sandwich board, man, like people just started coming. uh,
Hmm.
and it was right next to the supermarket, right?
I was going
Everybody,
to say, you guys on a high traffic road.
yeah, man, we're right on the highway, and it's a small highway, but right through the main drag. We got billboard, landmark signage, and so like it that in itself is like gold, priceless. I've never spent any money on advertising besides like running a newspaper ad once for a grand opening.
Hmm.
It's all been word of mouth, signage, and just being aggressive on that side of things to get the word out. But I mean, just being up on Google, right, as a 24-hour, commercial gym option, is going to bring. That's what most people go to, right? I mean, we get tons of traffic in this small little town, although it is a tourist town, from Google. The other half comes from foot traffic. Nobody looks at an ad and like, oh, I saw you in the newspaper. Like, I mean, or I got this, saw this
Hmm.
ad on TV. Like, I
The
think to
yellow
me,
pages.
yeah, I think, man, you just get on Google and you get some good signage and a good location, and you just market it like a typical 24-hour gym, and people will just start coming. And so that's the model that's worked for us to get people in. But of course, word of mouth is super powerful. Everybody start telling their friends, "Hey, we're 24-hour now. Come now. It's not intimidating. You can do your own thing. And you don't have to do CrossFit." So that's helped out a ton. But I think those other things are critical, and things that as entrepreneurs, business people, us CrossFit gyms, because we can be very dogmatic. We could like our garage, we could like our industrial area, and not want to go mainstream, and we can be very dogmatic about that, of like, no, this is the only way. And I think we need to be more open-minded these days. And if we want to grow beyond the typical CrossFit gym model, we need to be open-minded to the masses.
So location matters.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious with the 24/7 model, which I think is very cool. We've definitely hammered down the pros. Are there any cons?
Um, you know, I would say very little. I mean, some people might look at, oh, the extra overhead of just keeping the lights on, the music on, the TVs on 24/7. A lot of people point to the liability, idea. And again, it's not going to be a safe, well lit, um, probably comfortable environment in an industrial area, or in your house, right? But in a business area, commercial zone, right? That's well lit parking lot, and you have this secure. It's a very secure area. Now in this small town, man, we had one theft one time. It was a wallet left out for like 3 days, like on like in the lobby. Finally, somebody took it, and there's a
On
bunch of
day 3, though, you're just asking. I'd take it on day 3. I mean, come
I
on.
know, I know. And so finally it came back to us, and we looked at the cameras, we figured out who it is, and the cops went and got the money back to the member, and it was resolved. That was the worst thing that ever happened in 5 years of 24-hour gym. People up, and so we're this is a key thing. We're insured by RRG. So CrossFit RRG is our insurance. They make sure we have the proper signage, the proper verbiage in our waiver, to where we're 100% covered, man. Somebody comes in the middle of the night and they're under the influence, and they, they choke themselves out bench pressing, or they climb up to the top of the rope and then let go, and so we're 100% covered on all that stuff, but we've never had any major incident ever.
That's good. Yeah.
And in that time, but that was my major concern, man. I'd be like watching the cameras in the middle of the night. The first week we're open, we're like, man, what's going to happen? What's going on? And now I don't even worry about it. And if anything does happen, I know we're covered. Now this works great in a small town. Now, if we did this in the middle of downtown Portland or some other big cities in Nashville or Seattle, it might be a different story, man. People might be trashing my gym and my equipment. So there is something to think about that. If you're in a bad area, then this might not be the model for you. But if there's a safe, spot where, there's not gonna be a lot of vandalism, there's not, a ton of theft, and there's not a lot of loitering and all those things, then this is a great model that I've never had to deal with the cons. It's only been pros. And like in the beginning, man, I was a control freak where I wanted to know where everything was in my gym, everything had a certain spot. And I loved being able to lock the door and know everything's going to be exactly where I find it when I open this door back up. And so when I would do my morning walkthroughs and see stuff moved around, it used to really piss me off. And honestly, I realized, you know what? Those guys that are moving my stuff around, that are reorganizing my furniture in my house, right? They're paying the bills, and some. They're covered. It takes me 5 minutes to do a walkthrough and put the gym back together. And I said, man, if that's all it costs me, it's worth it. And I just need to like not be angry about it. Be like, thank God that we had all these people in the middle of the night come and use my gym, that are paying me for it and that are blessing
See
my
the value in it.
business.
Yep.
So I had to switch my perspective of like, this is going to be a blessing, not a curse, that we open this up to the masses to do it. And I've just trusted that the culture that we have, having a well-organized, clean gym, that people are going to try to keep it that way. And so far, that's what's happened.
Man, that's great. Yeah, and the whole overnight thing is really interesting to me. I could just have one real quick question, and then I got a kind of one last question, I guess. It's a little bit meatier. Quick question is, like, how staffed are you from those late night hours into the morning? Is there somebody there kind of monitoring? Is it just cameras? Like, what do you have as far as presence through the night?
Yeah, we pretty much have somebody there from 5 a.m. to at least 3, 4, 5 p.m. during the week. We don't have a lot of staffing. Well, I should say Saturday mornings as well, and that's it. And so we kind of we don't have a front desk, right? We have the technology to do it, which is great. I still have no employees. All my team, I have like 6 coaches and like 5, cleaning girls that help with customer service and appointments and tours. It's all independent contractor. I have no employees, and they're all members, and all that. But anyway, I work within their schedule, and so we keep it to those hours. And if we need to meet with somebody, at 6, 7 p.m., like we'll be flexible and arrange for that. But we don't have, after hours staffing, and we've never seen the real need for it.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so my last question, and this is really kind of going back to the beginning. In the beginning, you were talking about, you had this awesome home setup, your hand got forced, you moved into a commercial facility, and what was important to you and the advice you were giving was keep your eye on the end state. What is that end state? So what is that to you now? Like, what is that kind of North Star end state that keeps you on track and helps to guide some of the decisions that you have as the business evolves?
Great question. And I would say, think like an investor, think like an entrepreneur, become financially independent, or at least be driving that way. At this point right now, I don't have any schedule or shift in the gym whatsoever. I run the programming, I pay the bills, and I manage, the memberships and customer service, and that's about it. I can leave for 2 weeks, like I'm going to in 2 weeks, and the gym will run itself. I rely on my team, but I also rely on the technology. So at this point, being financially independent at 46 is a huge blessing and would not have been possible if I would have made this shift. And so the end game, I think, for all gym owners should be that your gym becomes profitable on its own through passive income. The only way I've seen to do that, I know there's other paths and things I've tried before, is an open gym membership base, to where right now, guys, I could cancel all of my classes and our gym would still pay the bills for itself and for my family.
Hmm.
I could just cut our whole CrossFit program and say, you know what, we're not doing classes anymore. It's open gym only. That would
Hmm.
leave us with 1,000 members and no staff needed, no coaching, no classes. Like, that was my dream to get to that point. But there is no way I would ever consider cutting it because of what it does. It is a key part of our community, and it's a key part for those 200 people that use it. But it's optional. It's not like that's my bread and butter anymore. It's like we get to offer this, and hey, if that side breaks even, that's great, because the gym, the business, right, is the rest.
Hmm.
Um, and now I can pass it on to my kids. I got four
Right.
kids that are 10 to 15. And if they want to take over running it and it's a blessing to them and it lasts beyond me, my years, that should be our goal. Is that we have a gym that can exist without us, and
Bingo.
that creates that financial independence for you and your family. That's a big deal. Think bigger picture, and if you do that, it requires a leap of faith, and it requires some things that are uncomfortable, but we're supposed to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. We're supposed to be embracing the varied and the random, and be prepared for all the unexpected, right? It's a very CrossFit mindset type thing to take this on, and something that's out of our comfort zone. But that should be the end game. Otherwise, you're just going to be closing your business, your gym someday, and you might be selling for just to get out what you put into it. And in the end, it didn't do anything except maybe provide you an income while you were in the grind. So all it is a job if you don't make this shift somehow.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the huge differences between most of the other folks that are interviewing yourself, which is why I wanted to have you on today. The only other question I have that I don't think we covered, I'm curious, since you've got such a minimal staff, and you said even like frequently like no front desk person or whatnot, whether it's the CrossFit side of the house or the more traditional gym, if somebody just walks up and like, gym, they got good signage, I pull in, I was in the grocery store, they walk in and I'd like to start, how do they start? Does it have to
Yep.
happen online? How does that new member get their own key card and
Yep.
whatever?
Yeah. So our setup is we make our main classes are 5 a.m. to 11 Monday through Friday. So we have a coach on site if I need somebody to help somebody drop in, whatever. And then our cleaning staff and our customer service staff is in like noon to 4 each day, and they can handle appointments. So I'm booking them with appointments all the time, drop ins, with my team. So there's nobody in my afternoon staff is cleaning when they're not helping customers. So
Gotcha.
there's nobody sitting there like, okay, I'm waiting for something, a member to help, like, and so there's no dead time. There's nobody just sitting around. So I made it to where our gyms are locked up. We're open 24/7, but we're always locked. You can't just
Mm.
walk in.
Hmm.
What you have is on the front doors. If you need customer service, text my number, right? So this is something I'd like to get away from someday, but my phone, right, is the gateway. And I don't mind doing that because it works well. There's a QR code on the front door. Click on this QR code, buy a day pass, buy a week pass, start a membership. You can do it all through this QR code, and so I'll get a waiver to my phone, and I'll get a payment. and then I'll just text them the code. Done.
Mm.
Like, I just did a week pass for $40 or signed up a member at $149 a month. Took them 5 minutes. I sent them the code. Done deal. They're enrolled. 5 minutes on both sides. So that signage at the front door with instructions
Gotcha.
um,
Okay.
is how we handle that. Now, every once in a while, somebody sneaks in, my staff will find out and they'll help them out, But for the most part, I'm kind of the gatekeeper. It all goes through me. But the technology of the QR code, the online payment, and even the Beyond the Whiteboard app, right? They have it all set up where they go to the app, they book their drop-in class, they can schedule which class they want, they can do a week of classes. The waivers built in, like they literally, I just send
Mm.
them one link through Beyond the Whiteboard, and the rest they take care of the rest of themselves, to where I don't even have to do anything. So that's been the key to making that work.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's all I got, Boz. You got anything else?
No, yeah, no, it's been really informative. Thanks for your time.
And
Yeah, and it's just been an evolution over the last since we made that shift. Whatever 7-8 years. It's been a slow evolution, and I've
Yep.
just slowly added a little technology here and there. We just went to the All-In app for scheduling. I was still using a clipboard, and people were texting me to cancel their classes, a year ago. So a lot of this stuff, I'm just slowly letting go and just adding. Okay, let's add this one piece of tech. Let's add this one piece and slowly getting it. I'm about 99% released, but it's taken 7 or 8 years. So I
Yep.
think there's something about the gradual, patient
mm-hmm.
approach that has been key for me.
Well, also after doing that, you know every aspect, every nook and cranny of the business. So you know if it's being done appropriately or not. You, when I interviewed you previously about the all-in-one, you were gracious and did this at the end. So I'll ask you again. I've got a feeling that you're going to have at least one, two, or 100 people interested in pursuing or starting to learn more about what you've got. So could you let people know how can they find you? You know, whether it's Instagram, website, email, or whatever you're comfortable throwing out there. Go ahead and let people know how they can track you down.
Yeah, and I have a heart for helping gym owners kind of make this jump from a job to a business, and I found like a lot of people come up to us, right, and they're like, man, you look fit, what do you do? And you're like, yeah, it's this super hard thing called CrossFit, and they're like, oh, never mind, man, that sounds way too tough, and I found that with the gym stuff too. Where they're looking for this magic thing, like, man, how do I? Well, if you had $1 million in your bank, you could probably create the business model I've created right now. If you don't, then you got to take the 10-year approach,
Right.
but any gym owner that's willing to listen and do it the right way, the long patient approach, I would love to help. And so, the best way to get a hold of me is email coach@crossfitsisters.com. If you just go to crossfitsisters.com, you'll find all the info you need on our gym and contact info and all that. And if you just Google CrossFit Sisters Oregon, boom, the gym number is my cell phone number. You can text it and be in touch with me immediately.
Cool.
Man, Brian, much appreciated, brother. I mean,
Yeah.
generous with your knowledge, generous with your time, and I got a feeling that people are going to really benefit from this. So thank you very much for sharing all you've learned the hard way.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me and listening. And if there's any benefit to any ongoing discussion or further discussion, or a gym owners group that wants to grow in this area, at this point, being hands off on the gym, this is a way I can give back, and I would love to be involved in any way I can.
Man, that's awesome. Well, yeah, you heard it, folks. Hit him up. Pick his
Yeah.
brain.
And like I said before, when we previously spoke, you find yourself in the greater Seattle area, let me know, and we'll grab a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And I actually got, between Mayhem and between Get Strong Ministries and some other buddies, man, I got a lot of people in Nashville, Tennessee I want to go see. And now I got one more.
Dude.
So
Yeah, shoot me a message. Love to have you.
planning on being out there in the fall if it all works out. So I will give you a heads up beforehand.
That'd be great.
And Seattle's not too far away either. So love to keep in touch, guys.
Yeah, come on out.
All right, Ryan. Once again, thanks, man.
All right. You guys have a good one.
You too.
You too.
Take care.